Good morning, good evening, good afternoon, everybody out there in podcast land. You are in tune to another episode of Intrinsic Motivation from a Homie's Perspective. This is Hamza, and really interested in speaking with our guest today. We're going to talk about why your safety nets aren't keeping you safe at all, and what does it mean to always be liked. So I'm really intrigued to talk to our guest today because I immediately thought of Ray Romano and Everybody Loves Raymond, and we want everyone to like us, right? Doesn't that keep us in our safety net and we have our security blanket like Linus from Charlie Brown? That's not the way to go. Well, this expert's going to put us on the right track. Without further ado, I'd like to welcome Joffre McClung to the podcast. Welcome, Joffre.
Well, thank you so much for having me. I'm delighted to be with you.
Absolutely, yes. Thanks for making it. And so, I was excited in speaking with you because you're always taught, well, we were taught in school that you should have a safety net. And so as a child, you're taught that, but as an adult, there are many people that feel like they haven't reached their potential or life may have passed them by because they were playing it safe their whole life. And so it sounds like you have not been playing by those rules at all.
No, I haven't. I may have tried at one point, but I don't do it very well. Let's put it that way.
So let's back up. Let's start how you broke through the reins of the Matrix and became the powerhouse that you are today.
Well, I'm not sure powerhouse would be quite appropriate, but I'll take it since you said it. I started out way back in the day in the theater world back in New York. I moved to New York way back when. Did theater, did acting, then added producing. I love producing. I love putting on a show in a sense. So did that, did some off-Broadway, did lots on off-Broadway as well. And then I had a dark night of the soul when I left a relationship. He and I had been together, 7, 8 years. And I had a dark night of the soul and began my spiritual journey, so to speak. And this is in the mid-'80s. This is how old I am. I hate to admit it, but that's how old I am. It was the mid-'80s. And I started, I'd always been interested in spirituality and metaphysics and whatnot, but I really went full force mid-'80s and began to explore different aspects of metaphysics and spirituality and whatnot, and kept doing my theater and my soap opera work and my commercial work. And then my father had a heart attack. And I moved back to Texas for about 4 years to help run his publishing business while he was recuperating. And I was sort of getting my feet back on the ground after that dark night of the soul. And I began to make short films because that was my next step. Theater was fine, but, I wasn't going to go any further, so I started doing short films. And so I was still in the same area, but still doing my inner homework, my spirituality work, my metaphysic work, exploring my inner wounds, just anything and everything. Every seminar there was, I attended. I did it all. Moved back to New York, got a television job as a producer, and did that for 15 years, and actually ended up using that as a way to make my first feature film. It was such a good job. I made commissions on it, so I was able to take 3 months to make a feature film. So I thought life was going pretty good. I got to tell you, I thought, okay, I did my homework. When I went back to Texas those 4 years, I'm feeling better. I'm getting more money than I've ever made. I'm doing a job I love. I'm doing a feature film. Life's going my way finally. And then I get the call that my mother has cancer. Now, she lived alone in Texas. Obviously, I was not going to let her be alone. So I decided to come back to Texas. It was temporary to begin with, but it ended up being 2 years while she was battling her stage 4 cancer. And ended up staying here because my job sort of was ending. I was traveling back and forth. But I knew it was sort of over, if that makes any sense, Amos, because you sort of know when your job's done. It's like I'd done everything I needed to do in that job, and people were moving to social media more and more, so I was doing less television. And for me, the whole point was to do television. That was the fun part of it. So I ended up staying in Texas and helping my mother pass on, and that sent me into a tither, I must say. I grieved that immensely. And finished during that period, I ended up finishing my self-love homework, which I'd been doing throughout the years, thinking, I'm finished. That's the thing with metaphysics and spirituality. You hit a level and you think, I'm done, I'm finished, I've achieved the goal. And then something comes in your life and you realize, that was just a certain level. I've got a new level I've got to hit now. And that's what hit me during that grief period with my mother. I thought, okay, well, I'm down here and I'm in grief. I'm going to finish my self-love work that I thought I'd finished when I moved back to New York. Obviously, there's some stuff still in there. So I ended up finishing my self-love work, and then I found out my best friend had cancer. The universe has a way to do it. They give you so much stuff. I'm telling you, it's something. Now, she had channeled since the mid-'80s. She and I were best friends in New York and in college, and we'd been best friends forever. So we decided we'd go through this together, and I would keep doing our homework. She decided she was going to create a miracle. She had stage 4 breast cancer, but she was going to create a miracle, so she was going to go with that vein. So we did our homework and did all this for about 3 to 4 years, and then her partner ended up dying suddenly on her. And she was suddenly alone in her apartment in L.A. And I was finally coming out of my grief with my mother and thinking, I got to do something. I got to get my juices going and be creative again. What do I do? And I was starting to try to write scripts or whatnot, but that seemed so silly to me after everything I had gone through with my mother and with my best friend, and my aunt and uncle also died during this period, and I helped my aunt. So, I mean, there was a lot going on, I got to tell you. The universe,
Sure.
they would throw me 8 years of hell. Let me put it that way. It's 8 years of hell, and put me on a 180-degree turnaround. So I decided to bring my friend back to Texas. Her father lived about an hour away from me. And I said, let's go. You'll go to your father's. If it's not good, there had been some issues. She wasn't sure how well it was going to be. I promised her I'd bring her to my house if it wasn't, but I knew she needed to start out there, if that makes any sense. Mm-hmm. So I brought her to Texas and got her with her father, and she ended up having 4 months with her father, and they were the best months of her life. Mm-hmm. I'm so glad I insisted she went and was with her father, because she felt love. She had been working on self-love and having a little more difficulty with it than I had had. And she was able, in the end, to open up to her self-love and allow to be loved, allow herself to feel love come in. So during that period while she was dying, there's 4 months that she was in Texas, I began writing the first book I wrote, which was on spirituality, which was how learning to say goodbye taught me how to live, which was really a story about my friend Rob and I's journey through her stage 4 cancer. And it was really a journal for me to get my juices flowing so that I could, be creative and create a new life for myself. I didn't know that this was going to be the turn I was going to be making. I finished the book. I thought, okay, I've done that. And then I grieved Rob, of course. And about 4 months later, I read the book again and said, you know what, I wrote the book wrong. And I said, what do you mean by that? And I realized I wrote it for somebody well on their way towards self-love, and a book to remind you how to stay out of fear when you're dealing with people dying. And I said, but how do you help people who don't know what self-love is or what self-discovery is? How are you going to help them? And I thought I wrote the book backwards. I should have written this book. So then I wrote the Heart of the Matter book. And that's where safety nets come in. I know I took a long way around. I'm sorry about that.
I love it. No, it's fine.
I just you through my whole life. I don't know why I did that, but I just sort of got on a roll there. I'm so sorry. But the second book is where safety nets gets involved, and it's dealing with self-love. And when you're dealing with self-love, you have to look back at your emotions from your wounds and your inner orphans and what they caused you to do, bringing your behavior out of the shadows and into the light. Part of that behavior is looking at your safety nets. Now we're back where you started, and I apologize for that circle.
No, I love circles, and I talk in circles, so I can follow along smoothly. It was perfect.
Okay, good.
And it raises so many questions. It does. And you'll see that the hour usually flies by because of that. But,
good.
You had so many morsels in there. I'm going to try to chew off bite by bite. And so okay. I like to start with liquid courage. And that usually started in college, where if someone's scared to or afraid to talk to let's just say guys and girls, a guy is afraid to speak to a girl that he really likes, and then he imbibes, so he takes this liquid courage. And then once he has that courage, then he can talk to that person. But the next day he just feels miserable, like, oh my goodness, I had too much to drink. What was I thinking? And the reason why I brought that up is, in my understanding, in pre-incarnation, before we come to the birth canal and live with our family and such, we don't have the pressures or the weight of third dimension. So it's kind of like that liquid courage, like, oh yeah, give me this, give me that, and give me this. And then when we're born, we're like, holy moly, did I sign up
You
for my
put too much
parents?
on the plate. I know.
Yeah.
we used to, my friend and I would yell about that. Did we really say we wanted all of this stuff on this plate for this life? And the answer is yes, we did.
Yes, yes, indeed. So
Oh
looking
yeah,
back
we
when you
did.
said the 8 years of hell, I mean, knowing that you were going in at that first day, you didn't think it would take 8 years, but looking back, you probably that's where you were able to share your whole story with me and get the proper perspective.
Oh yeah, there is a gift in the universe not letting us know what's coming. There is a
Hmm.
gift in that, because if I had known that, maybe I wouldn't have moved home. I would have said, I'll come visit you every few weeks. I'll get on the plane and come visit you. If I had known that I was going to end up being stuck here, helping her die, then having my aunt and uncle die, and then having my best friend, finding myself in Texas, a place I did not expect to be in, frankly, ever again, and going
Hmm.
through hell inwardly of healing those final wounds, I would have said, hell no. Because nobody wants to do that. That doesn't sound fun. But once you're
Right.
in it and you're used to doing your homework, and you've got this stuff on your plate, what do? You do your homework. So I did my homework. Woke up 8 years later and went, oh my God. And I was glad I woke up, because those 8 years were hellacious, and they were hard, and they were full of grief. Grief for my mother, and grief for myself, my inner wounds, grief for my aunt and uncle, grief for my friend, grief for my New York life. There was grief on every level that I had to deal with. But I look back and I think, I would not be where I am today if I hadn't gone through those 8 years. I would not have written these
Right.
2 metaphysical spiritual books. I would have kept
Hmm.
doing my inner work. I would have had friends that I shared this work with, but I would have kept it very private. Because to me, that's
Hmm.
kind of a private work. I would not have
Right.
put myself out there. But once I went through this, I thought, well, you got no job in New York. You got to do something. And I thought, well, at least this is creative. It's writing. I'll try it. And I ended up loving it. I actually ended
Hmm.
up loving it, I have to be honest. So sometimes courage comes when you least expect it in ways you did not anticipate.
Yes, indeed. Well, let's use the school analogy, because you kept saying that you're doing your homework. And so usually when we study and we do our homework, it's because in school we're going to get tested on what we learned.
Well, I kind of think we are I won't say testing. I don't like to use the word testing. I used to, but I've kind of grown out of that, because it makes you feel like somebody's watching us, and we got to be
Okay.
tested to move forward. So I prefer to say it's sort of doing my homework is like, I used to work with a channel. I met her back in the 90s, and I worked with her really up until recently. But every 3 months I'd have a session with her, an hour session, say what I was going through, this how I'm doing it. She'd give me homework. She goes, okay,
Hmm.
here's, try this. Go into your meditation and look at it this way. See what you can. She would never tell me the answer. She'd say, see what you find out when you look at it from this perspective in your meditation work. So I would do that and get new answers and work with it for 3 months. So homework was always a way to go inward and to rediscover parts of yourself. People
Hmm.
love spirituality, they love metaphysics, but when you say self-discovery, a lot of people don't know how to do that. And self-discovery is work. It takes work to really get to know yourself. It really
Right.
does. So homework is something you got to do constantly if you want to be wide awake. And wide awake takes a lot of work and takes a lot of patience, and takes a lot of
Hmm.
compassion for yourself too, because you can't do it all in one step. You got to do it in levels. Again, everything's done in levels. You'll hit a
Right.
new level, you'll feel good. Then something will come up and you'll realize, oh, well, there's still some stuff. I need to go deeper, a deeper level. And you go deeper in that level. You do some more homework. You get some more compassion, understanding, forgiveness, some understanding, some self-discovery, and you're able to let go of things. Homework is real important to everybody if you want to grow. If you want to grow. If you don't want to grow, you don't need to do homework. And not everybody needs to. But if you want to grow, you got to do homework. You got to pay attention to what you're feeling and what you're thinking.
Let me ask you this, because you had just mentioned, and I did kind of hint at it, that when we're born, we don't know what's going to happen in the future, right? So we have this unknown. However, when we're knocking on the door of transition, like your friend that had 4 months, she had the best 4 months of her life. Is it because you have that timeline where you think it, or you know that it may end, that you'll kind of your homework and everything else goes to the forefront, whereas before we have the grace to kind of fumble around and then ultimately come to that to that place?
Well, that's a good question. I have to give you that one. I would say, having been around so many people who've died recently around me, that I have to say some are able to meet it gracefully and some are not. Robin was, again, she did homework, and when she moved here, I said her only homework now, I never said she was going to die from it. She still wanted that miracle, so that's the way we were going to play it. She gets to choose how she wants to, deal with her diagnosis, so to speak. But I said, your only goal when you come to Texas is self-love. You need to let love in. That is your goal, period. Everything else you've been working on for the years, throw it away. You don't need it now. Your goal is to let love in. So she used that focus for months to focus on letting love in. And it took time, but she was able to do that and felt love from her father and from me and from her brothers. So it was really quite magnificent. My aunt was slightly different. She had a response when I went and visited her before she died, and she had MD. So her body was horribly twisted, which was shocking to me. Again, something I had not anticipated, but obviously needed to go through. She had regrets. She was encompassed with regrets and the mistakes she thought she had made. Now, I just told her that, I did the whole thing about that there are no mistakes, that you came here to learn. You'll get another chance. Don't worry about it. You'll do it the next time. You learned what you could this time, and you did the best you could with what you knew at the time. And you wouldn't be mad at a 1-year-old for not walking properly. You'd pick them up and say, try it again. Same thing with the mistakes you think you made. So each person sort of handles it differently. But as far as when we come in, I want to go back to that part. You say when we come in, we don't know we do kind of know what's going to happen. We forget when we come in, though. So I happen to believe that. Again, that's a personal belief. Everybody has their own belief system, but I believe we do know what we're setting ourselves up for, the greatest opportunities we're setting ourselves up for. I think my greatest opportunity was for self-love, to get to that level of self-love, but I knew to do that, I was going to have to go through 8 years of hell to get there, and my first dark night of the soul and some other things, and I was willing to do that. Or I could come here, decide this is too hard, I don't want to do it this life, and shut myself off and not do it. That's where your choices come in. But I think we do know our greatest choices are, we have this chance to learn this particular lesson, this particular gift, and we have the chance to do it. And sometimes we do it. Sometimes we decide, I put too much on my plate, I'm not doing it this time. But I met many people at seminars who do that. They'll go to seminar after seminar, but not really do any homework to change anything. And I think, okay, well, they're not going to do it this life, and that's okay. They're just, they're going to do their thing, and they'll do it next life. That's sort of how I see it.
Which leads me to my next question, which is, since you've been a part of Hay House, I had gone to Toronto for one of those You Can Do It conferences. And what's her name? I think it was during Virtue at the time, since she's totally different today. But she was channeling at this time. I think it was during Virtue, and so people, we're all in the audience and we're listening to her, and she's talking about past lives and channeling and such. And so she goes around. I don't think it was during Virtue now that I mention it, but who else was it? Anyway, the point of the story is she was channeling, and so she was a medium. And so as you go around the room, you're waiting to hear from a deceased one or a loved one, what have you. And some were like, love, love, love. And then there were others that were like, well, I don't really believe this, even though I know I'm dead. They were kind of still stuck in the third dimension. So I was just wondering, with your relationships with those that were so close to you, that transition, were you able to still have relationships, and did they morph in any way?
I would say yes, I did. Mine's slightly different. I don't channel or medium, but through my meditations, I was able to connect with my mother. In a meditative state. I mean, just to me, I think we can all do that. Obviously, we all have that talent. And just go in a meditative state. And there were some questions I had in my self-loving work. There was a question I had because in our family, there was some tension within the family. There was some jealousy issues with my sibling, extreme jealousy, physically and emotionally and spiritually and mentally violent towards us. And I couldn't quite forgive my mother for letting that happened to me, letting her allowed this person do this to me my entire life. And I was having trouble getting to that compassionate understanding and letting that go. And I went into meditation, called my mother in, and I said, why didn't you protect me from my sibling? And she said, I did try to protect you. I thought if I kept the peace, then you'd be safe. And that just triggered, my heart just opened wide open. The way I heard it, I didn't really hear it. It just drops into your head like a download. But I went, of course. That's what my mother always wanted, peace, because she thought if there was peace, I would be safe. Because the sibling attacked me and attacked my mother and other people. And I was like, oh. And I was able to forgive my mother. I loved my mother, of course. But with anybody in your life, you have love and you also have some pissed off feelings about them as well. And that little pissed off I couldn't let go of. But I was able to let go of it when she passed and I called her in. So in my book, I talk about calling people in and talking to them, dialoguing with them in your meditation. Again, I'm not a medium or a channel. That's a different energy. But I think you can get what you need in a meditative state, whether it's one sentence, one word, one look, one touch, what you need for your next step. I do believe you can get that.
Right, which kind of goes back to the beginning of safety net. And so you're talking about when you have a safety net, you're really trying to control a situation that in the bigger picture, if you try to control it, you may miss the message that's coming through.
Oh, yeah. Well, safety nets really, truth of the matter is, they're not about who you are, but rather how you see the world and what you have decided you must do to be safe and to feel loved. Safety nets they buffer you from your outer world and your inner world of pain. Safety nets are your go-to behaviors. They're born out of a falsehood that you must protect yourself from a dangerous and unpredictable world because you're unlovable, unloving, unloved, and that you're not good enough. Those different facets of self-love, those different facets of self-love that you do not have, therefore you need your safety nets to feel safe and to feel loved. Safety nets give you a false sense of security, but it's really your ego's way to make you feel slightly better. There's such as judgment is a safety net. Control is a safety net. Needing to be right, self-righteousness, pleasing everybody is a safety net. They're ways to keep you to feel safe and to give you a false sense that you are loved because you're looking for love outside of yourself versus finding it within yourself. That's what I mean by safety nets, if that makes any sense.
No, it does. It's just that, and just for a conversation for the audience, it starts out that way when you're a child. That especially today with the news of paying hundreds of thousands of dollars so your kids can get into college.
Oh, Lord. That sends a lot of mixed messages to that child, a lot of mixed messages. And I'm sorry for the adults, too, that they're so shut off from themselves that they don't trust the world enough and their place in the world and their sense of self-love that they're passing that on to their kids, frankly, is what they're doing. But that's a whole other conversation. But that's what they're doing. They're passing on their own lack of self-love, their own sense of knowing that they're safe in this universe, that they have everything they need for their journey before them, and so do their kids.
So are you saying, Joffre, that before you incarnate, you may choose parents that look that way so that you can bring that out of yourself, and through yourself, they would learn through you?
Yes, you got it exactly right. Couldn't have said it more beautifully. I have to give you kudos on that one. You said it beautifully. That's exactly right. You choose your parents. You choose your siblings. I chose my sibling who beat the hell out of me, frankly, my entire life. I chose that sibling to do that so I could go on that journey of losing my lack of self-love and finding my way back to it. In a way, life is really a game. We all think it's about lessons, but really it's a game. It's a game of consciousness. Okay, I'm going to go down here. I'm going to see if I can remember self-love. Okay, how do I set that up? I'm going to forget self-love. That's how I'm going to set it up and see if I can find my way back to self-love. Because on the other side, we already know all this stuff. On the other side, we know this stuff. In our higher self level, we have all this stuff. But playing this game of consciousness, going, okay, on this particular planet at this time, I'm going to come down here and I'm going to see if I can find my way back to self-love. I'm going to have somebody beat me to death with it so that I would have to find my way back to it. if that makes any sense to you. So, yeah, I think we come in choosing our parents that are going to lie for us to get into college so that we can wake up and go, hey, this is saying a lot about self-love and my place in the world, and that I don't have enough. I was not given everything I needed for my journey is what they're sending that message to those kids, unfortunately. And, of course, unfortunately, you're having adults who are still stuck with their inner orphan wounds, raising kids, helping them keep their inner orphan wounds going as well. It's a circle. It's a vicious circle that goes on until somebody breaks it.
Yeah, well, let's stay there with the circle, and then we could talk about breaking it for a second. So one thing that was really difficult for me in college, in undergrad, was a professor, and they were talking about you really shouldn't get married until you're 28 because you don't even know yourself, and you need to discover your self-love and get out in the world before you settle down. And that was a challenge at the time. I mean, it makes sense now, but the other side of that is when you talk about your safety net, what have you, it seems like it's pre-written for you to, go to school, go to college, get the two houses, the house, the picket fence, the two kids. And then when you're 35, 40, you have that dark night of the soul that you talked about earlier.
Yeah, that's pretty much that's how we're told it's supposed to play out. My dark night of the soul hit me when I was 28. So frankly, mine hit a little earlier than everybody else.
You're an overachiever.
I am an overachiever. I knew I needed to get started on my metaphysics work, so I thought at 28 is when I'll have my dark night of the soul. Then I'll have another one when I hit 40. Why not? Yeah, that's how we're told it's supposed to be played, that you do this, you have your kids, and then when you hit 40, 45, then you have your midlife crisis, and then you start to look at your life and decide what you look inward or something like that. But I think that's changing, especially for the younger people. I think people are going on that journey of self-discovery much earlier now. With all the look, when I started it, I had to go to the occult section to get the books I needed to read.
Right.
The first book I read in 1983-4 was Seth Speaks. It was in the occult section. There was no New Age section. There was no spirituality section. It was the occult section. And this is in New York City, so it's not like I'm doing it in Texas. This was in New York City, Coliseum Bookstore. It was the occult section. I got my Seth Speaks book. It blew my mind. I went, oh, my God, we create our own reality? Oh, my Lord. And it made sense to me because everything else wasn't making sense. I was going through a dark night. I needed some answers. So, yeah, it's back to your question. You said earlier, I just went blank on you. I'm sorry. What did you just say? Something you spurred something in me.
Oh, just that timeline about when things happen.
The timeline.
Right.
I think the timeline, we have to throw it out. First of all, we're all going to be living a lot longer. So that timeline's got to go because I didn't even get my 15-year job that I made great money on and got thank God, some pension money on when I left it until I was 41. Before that, I did theater, I did soap operas, I did commercials. I had day jobs in between my acting work. Other people switch jobs. Life's completely different than that route that you get married at. Now, lots of people still do that, and I'm in Texas, and everybody does seem to do that down here. And maybe in Atlanta it's the same. I don't know. But I think we got to throw all of that out the window and live the way you want to live. So if you want to get married when you're 23, go ahead. I think, good, go ahead. You may be divorced, but you know what? It's probably part of your journey.
Yeah, we had a guest on recently that was talking about Margaret Mead and the fact that she says that you get married 3 times in your life. It may be with that one person, or it may be 3 different people.
That makes sense. I like her a lot. I like her a lot. I like the people you're mentioning a lot.
Well, you're my friend because you read Seth Speaks, so you already get a gold star right off the bat.
Oh, yeah. Well, I read all the Seth Speaks. I read all the Seth books. I've read every book. I quit reading recently because I thought, okay, I'm writing. I got to write, not read other people because I don't want to put their stuff in my book.
Right.
I stole their stuff, so I can't read right now. But she's right, and it's true in the sense we do get married 3 times, whether it's actually a marriage or not. I think I'm on my 3rd incarnation in this lifetime My first incarnation was when I moved to New York. I mean, it was childhood to New York. Then I had my dark night of soul. Then I had my second incarnation when I moved back to New York, did my 15-year TV job. And then I'm now in my third incarnation where I'm becoming this spiritual metaphysical writer. I mean, that's my third life, and they're completely different. And they're all creative. So, I mean, obviously you stick with certain areas within your life. I think I've always been in a creative area. But you have three different lives. Those are three different marriages for me in a way.
Absolutely.
So I think she's right. You do have three different marriages. You do have three different lifetimes. If you're lucky, you get to have three different lifetimes, I think. That means you're growing.
Right. Yes. Well,
now, next life, I may take a break and not do that three different lifetimes. I may take an easy lifetime next time.
Oh, well, since you're a Seth fan, I want to ask you about Oversoul 7. And so,
oh, yes.
in that one, there were timelines, right? There were timelines where you were jumping in and out to your different incarnations to bring that message back. So was that more so just for reading, or have you ventured into
I've
that
done that.
arena?
I've done that work in the beginning, yeah. Back in my early days in the metaphysical world, I did a lot of that inner work of course, past life work. We all know that. But there were times where I would connect to another life. Of course, they're all lives are all happening at the same time. So I would tap into a life that I needed to tap into at that moment to understand the problem I was having now. No, I don't do that as much anymore because once you've done that enough, it's like, okay, I've got this life. Let me focus on this. Now, I did past life work to heal some wounds that were bleeding through in this life that were still playing out. That's slightly different than the Oversoul 7, which is three wonderful books. And somebody bought the movie rights, and they bought them back in early 90s, and they've never put them out there. And I'm thinking, well, that's ridiculous because I'm going to write the damn script and put it out there myself. It's so good. They're also wonderful. They're different lifetimes. They cross over into dream life. I used to do a lot of dream work in my life. A lot of my messages come in my dreams. I didn't do the channeling work or the medium work, but a lot of my work is done in dreams. And I mean vivid dreams. I have vivid dreams. And I used to have different lifetimes sort of appear in my dreams, cross over, and sort of I would suddenly be them for a little bit and get some answers. So I think there's a lot of stuff going on that we just need to pay. If you're interested, now if you're not, fine. But if you're interested, if you just put it out there, you want to learn more about yourself, especially like when you're sleeping, put it out there. Those things will come to you in your dreams.
Have you ever played the Choline game?
Choline? I don't think so.
Yeah, the supplement.
Tell me what it is.
Choline. Sure, it's just a supplement. It's a supplement you can get over the counter at the store. And so there's a ton of videos about choline and taking it before you go to sleep because it enhances your lucid dreaming.
Oh, okay. Well, I'm pretty good with lucid dreaming anyway. I don't need much help with that, frankly. There are times I don't need to be dreaming. But that's a good thing if you're into that. The lucid dreaming can be quite I remember when I was healing some wounds, I did some lucid dreaming and was able to confront the zombies in my dreams that were my past lives, not past life, but past wounds. And I was able to turn it around within the dream. But I still had to do the homework when I came out of the dream, unfortunately. That's the problem. You still have to do your homework, people. It's fun to do lucid dreaming. You can change some things. You can see your own power. But the bottom line is we still have to do our own homework. That's the bottom line. I hate to tell you that, but at least from my experience, you got to do your inner homework. Got to get in there and do that.
I'm glad you said that because just after Seth, it was Abraham, and they were saying that we fought so hard just to get in these bodies, and so when people are in the arena of lucid dreaming and such, just like, I don't want to get out of that mode. I don't want to get out of the bed, and it's like, no, that's why we came here.
No, they're right. They're right. Abraham, I used to listen to him, believe it, on cassette tapes.
Oh, wow.
They used to come out on cassette tapes. That's how old I am. I think this was 1990, 1988, 89, 90, something. They were little cassette tapes that were being passed around to all of us, that were being passed around to everybody. This is before he became real, real big.
Right.
Where it just really was like, the cult section of us that were doing all this work. But yeah, I love Abraham. But he's right. We are in this body for a reason. That's why you start out doing metaphysics. You do the different lifetimes. You do the lucid dreaming. I used to do some astral traveling. I only did it a few times, but I was able to do a little bit of it. And I thought it was so cool. You do all those kind of fun metaphysics things, and then you've still got to come back and do your life.
Yes.
That's the thing. You think, okay, how is this really changing my life? Now, the meditation work, the inner work, the self-discovery work, the inner wound work, the inner orphan work, all that's vital to changing your life in the present. But I think we all start the metaphysic work the same way, doing the fun stuff. Astral traveling, the past lives, the lucid dreaming, all the different, the channeling, the mediumship. We all do those different things unless they happen to be our particular path. We end up waking up and going, is this really changing my life? It's fun, but I need to actually want to change some things in my life. And then you got to get down and do your homework. That's the bottom line, people. You got to do some homework, and it's fun when you do it, though. When you start doing your self-discovery work, it's really quite interesting.
I have a question about the 80s. In the 80s, we had the cosmic convergence in 1987, where it felt like
harmonic convergence.
Thank you. And now, 30 years later, do you see a difference between the environment back in the 80s versus today?
Oh, yes. Now, it's subtle. Again, you're not going to see everything's subtle. But it's look, the fact I was going to the occult section and now there's new age sections, that's a difference. That's showing you there's a difference going on here. That took 30 years to grow. For us coming out of the occult section or going to mediums or channels and doing these little seminars to suddenly you hear it, you got Oprah talking about it. You got everybody talking about meditation on TV. You watch the Today Show and they have a meditation expert on. That's a huge difference. That took 30 years to become part of everyday conversation. People are doing yoga. That when I started yoga, now they were doing it in New York, but I mean, in the 90s we were doing some yoga in New York, but it was like, pockets of us in New York City were doing it. Now it's everywhere. I mean, I kind of quit doing it. I started doing some other things because suddenly I thought, well, I'm about all these by these soccer moms. This isn't making much fun anymore. But because I thought soccer moms doing yoga, I don't know. So I think there's been a big difference, and that the differences are subtle. And the difference, the fact that spirituality is becoming more mainstream is a subtle difference, but it's an important difference. It's allowing us to make our decisions to the divine, because spirituality and metaphysics does connect to the divine energy, allowing each one of us to make that decision about the divine on our own. So we're not having to do it through an organized religion. And there's nothing wrong with organized religion. But to be able to make that decision of how you want your relationship with the divine to be on your own is important. And that took 30 years. But that 30 years, again, we live many lifetimes. So 30 years to us is, right now, there are days that I feel like a day is too long. There are days that I need to end this day. But in general, if we do life after life, this is nothing.
Right.
I mean, I listen to a lot of, I know all the people you've mentioned. What about, I just went blank on his name. It'll come back to me. Kolar. No, not Kolar.
Bashar.
Who?
Bashar.
No, I do know that name. No, it starts with a K. And as I talk, I'm going to see if I can see a book name from it. He does a channel. He's a channel. I listen to him on YouTube. And he used to do the group. He channeled the group. Anyway, he talks about the life changes and
Tom Kenyon?
subtle. Say the name again.
Tom Kenyon?
No, I know that name too, but no. You're in the right ballpark, but you're not the right person. It'll come to me in a little bit. I'll forget his name, but he talks about the subtle differences that even what we're going through politically now, with all the politics going on, and it sounds so horrible, and we're all disgusted, and we're just, it's like, what's happening? Everybody's yelling at everybody. This is an important part of our journey, though. What we're going through now is a part of our journey. There are no mistakes in that sense. So I do believe from the harmonic convergence to now, there has been a major shift. And actually, you want to get real metaphysical? I'll get real metaphysical with you.
Go for it.
Okay, I'll go for the harmonic convergence. That was a decision we made to shift the energy so that we would go off the path and not destroy ourselves again. We've done this many times. Again, I'm talking many lifetimes. We've created this world many times, and we've blown it up many times, unfortunately. If you know anything about Lemuria, Atlantis, we've done this many times. We made the decision with the harmonic convergence that we were going to shift it and not blow up the world, and we were going to continue on the path and keep creating this world more further down the line than blowing ourselves up. So we've already done that. We did not blow ourselves up, people. That's the good news. So that whole ending that, we're going to end ourselves, that's a bunch of this, again, is my own belief system, but that's kind of, we're done with that. We don't need to worry about that anymore. We're not going to go there. But the spirituality, the fact it's not in the occult section, the fact it's all over television, the fact that it's spreading like wildfire is a good sign that things are shifting. And they're shifting upward in vibration. So things are changing. It just takes time.
Do you feel that there's another school of thought of and that was an excellent explanation between 87 and now, and there seems to be an acceleration after 2012. So in one respect, there's a school of thought that we are in year 7, and that's why we are expanding so quickly, faster than before. It's because since 2012, it's like put your seatbelt on.
Yeah, it has been put your seatbelt on, frankly. And things seem to be going faster. They really do seem to be going faster, and decisions seem to be made quicker. It can also be a bit more frightening because things seem to be in our faces quicker, too, in the outer world. But I think it's a good thing that things are going faster. Like I said, we've already made the decision. We're going to keep moving on this world and keep raising its vibration further and further up the plateau. So in that sense, 2012, we made it through 2012. And 2012 we set way back when, in a sense. So, yes, it was important, but at the same time it was important because it was set back, and we already made the decision we were going to go past that point. On a mass consciousness level, we all agreed, we're going to go past that point. We don't need to blow ourselves up and start all over again. We're going to go past that point. So I think 2012 was important. I think it is speeding up, and I think from what I heard, from 2012 the next 20 years after 2012 were crucial in our evolution, and we would be leaping in that evolution. And it feels that way. To me it does.
Right.
I hit something, I'll get it, and I'll leap further quicker. I'm like, whoa, that happened quickly. When before, in the 80s and the 90s, and even the 2000s, it kind of took some time.
Right.
To make the shifts and get them locked into my heart and my head and get myself in the right direction and then make the next leap. Now when I hit it, I'm able to make it and I shift to a new level quicker. So I do think it's happening quicker.
And that takes me back to the safety net. So, I mean, you seem like the embodiment of I keep going, I'm breaking out of my my comfort zone. And what were some signs that you saw, or some signs that you can give out to the audience that will help them realize that maybe they are in the safety net, and if they realize it, that this may be a time for them to make that pivot?
Well, I would say this. There's two things. One is a safety net, and then one is your comfort zone. Those are sort of two separate things. The comfort zone, that if you're stuck in your comfort zone and yet you're feeling trapped, not moving, that's a different issue. That's about movement. That's about making a decision that you've got to do something different. You're stuck in a mode. The safety nets come out of your beliefs that you are not lovable, not loving, and not loved. And these are the things that get triggered out in the outer world. That's why you become judgmental of other people. You could be doing fine, all of a sudden you find yourself judging someone. Okay, why are you judging someone? What got triggered in you that makes you want to judge someone? Because something got triggered in you that made you judgmental. Not that that person deserves judgment. Something happened in you to not feel good enough or valuable enough that you need to inflate or deflate the object of your judgment. It separates us, continuing to lie that somehow some are more valuable than others. So safety nets are things that we all do. We all have them. We all have judgment at different times. Some have more of it. Some have less. Some of us have control at different times. Some people have more. Some people have less. Some people need to be right more. I know somebody who always needed to be right. Well, they needed to prove their worth through needing to be right. That is a lack of self-love. It's a mask, that inferiority complex. And life is fluid. What was right one day may not be right the next day. And you'll respect others that have different viewpoints depending on the lenses that they're looking through when you respect the lenses you're looking through, and I'm working on changing your lenses. So needing to be right is that's a tough one, because once you think you're right, you're going to scream at somebody, I'm right and you're wrong. And I don't know how many people you know that way, but I've known a few people that way, that they need to be right, and they don't stop until you say, oh, right, you're right, I'm wrong, drop it, whatever. Those people, they get their sense of value from needing to be right. What they don't know is that they're looking for a piece of their self-love outwardly through somebody else versus looking at it inwardly and realizing I need to work on my sense of value and realize that I matter to the universe and I am valuable to the universe just as I am. Not for what I do, not for what I will do, but because I am me, simply me. They need to find it that way versus trying to get it from needing to be right. Same thing with control. That's not being good enough and feeling powerless. You need to get your piece of pie before there's none left. That comes from that sense. And that, you're the only one who can do it. You can't surrender to the universe because you're on your own and only you is watching your back. You got to control everything. Well, that means you don't have everything you need for your journey. So therefore, you got to control everything. Now, we all have certain personality aspects, but I'm talking when you go into that control and suddenly you're in a fight and you're trying to control at work, controlling your relationship. That's coming from a lack of self-love. So safety nets are a way to say, okay, I know I've got safety nets. Maybe I need to please everybody. My mother pleased everybody. That was her safety net. That'll keep her safe. That'll make her feel loved. Nobody will be fighting, and therefore she'll be safe and she'll feel loved. So she pleased everybody. Unfortunately, she pleased everybody and allowed people to walk all over her. So her safety net did not keep her safe. Judgment does not keep you safe because you're busy judging somebody else versus looking at why are you judging everybody else to begin with. What are you feeling about yourself? Our safety nets give us that false sense of security versus if you use your safety nets to pay attention in life, hey, I'm needing to be right in this argument. I need to shut my mouth first in person so I don't keep this argument going. Then I need to go home, be by myself, and figure out why I needed to be right. What was lacking in me that needed to be right? And do your homework to do self-discovery. Safety nets are great self-discovery techniques to figure out why do I need to please people? Why do I need to be right? Why do I need to judge? Why do I need to control? Those are great ways to find those inner wounds. We all have inner wounds. I call them our inner orphans because we disown them. As we're growing up, we disown them and put them in shadow because we got to move on with life. But they're still running our lives, unfortunately, through control, judgment, or needing to be right. So that's one segment. But the other thing you brought up was this, I'm stuck, I'm not moving forward. That's a different energy. That's where you are stuck. And that's a sense of sometimes you got to shake things up to get that energy moving again, to get things moving. I've done that where I'll be stuck, and suddenly I'll say, okay, I'm going to move. And I'll move. Suddenly I'll just move to get that energy moving. Other people do it different ways. But sometimes when you're stuck, you've got to do some things to get things shaking. And sometimes it's walking to the bookstore and saying, let the right book fall into my hands, and letting the right book fall into your hands, like Seth Speaks fell into my hands. And it changed my life. It did. I love that book.
Absolutely. Do you think with these patterns that it's Freudian with the first 7 years of your life and you just keep repeating those patterns?
Yes, I do. I would say first 7, I would say 7 to 12, between 7 to 12 years old, because things can happen and get a little more fermented around 10, 11, 12. I think you're setting up your belief system for how the world works, what your place is in the world, and what you have to do to be safe and to feel loved. So you're setting up all these things, and they're coming out of different wounds that happen. We all have wounds. Some are little that don't really affect your life that much, and then most of us have 1, 2, or 3 that are rather large, meaning they keep coming back, and the same pattern keeps happening. The same people keep showing up in different costumes for you to play with. The same situations keep reappearing. Those are your core wounds that need to be healing because you've set it up from the time 7 to 12. This is how my life's going to work. This is how I'm going to be treated. So I've got to do this and this and this. And then you have your dark night of the soul. Hopefully you have it early versus later, depending on your journey. And you go, wait, you know what? I don't believe this stuff, but something's not working. something's not working for me, and everything I set up thinking if I play by these rules, then my life will be okay, then I'll get what I want, and you suddenly realize it's not working that way, that's a great dark night of the soul. That's a great dark night of the soul, because it makes you wake up and go, okay, I've got some beliefs that are not working for me anymore. And I think we all have beliefs that aren't working, and we all have wounds that need healing. And they're all based on lack of self-love. Because how often as a kid were you told how to love yourself? Now, you may be told be nice to yourself, don't be mean to yourself. But were you ever told how to love yourself?
That's a good point.
See, I wasn't. I was told, don't talk bad about myself. I didn't really talk bad about somebody else did, my family, but I didn't. But I wasn't told how to love myself. I was told how to be nice to people, be kind to people, do this for people, but I wasn't told how to be kind and nice and wonderful to myself.
Right.
And what that means, what does it mean to me? What is self-love? The way I define self-love is that to know in your heart of hearts that your core being, not your personality is formed from different wounds and different things that happen, but your core being, who you are, is lovable, loving, and loved. When you know you are lovable, loving, and loved, you have a root of self-love. Now, lovable simply means that you know you are worthy of love. You exist. Therefore, you are worthy of love in the universe's eyes. It doesn't matter if another human being ever gives it to you. It doesn't matter if you ever receive it from another human being. You know you are worthy of love in the universe's eyes, period, end. Loving means that you know you were given a beneficial heart waiting to be uniquely expressed through you. Whether it's through business, relationships, creativity, whatever manner you express this loving heart, it is good enough. This is where your sense of being good enough often resides, is in this loving part of self-love. And then to know that you're loved is to understand that the universe, you matter to the universe, and you have value to the universe. Again, not for what you will do, not for what you can do, but because you are you. When you have those three components of self-love, you can handle any challenge. And you're going to have challenges in this life. I mean, life's not going to be challenges, I can't even say the word, without challenges. But when you have those three rooted in your heart, you can handle any challenge that appears. And know that when you're feeling a lack of love, you know you can close your eyes and give yourself that love. When you feel like you're not being good enough, somebody's not appreciating your work, you can go and appreciate your own work yourself, whether it's through relationships or business. When you feel like you don't matter, you can go and realize that you do matter and you are valuable to the universe, whether you do a darn thing in the world or not. It's not about earning it or proving it. You simply are it. So that's what I mean about self-love. Those three things are vital. And I think most of us are walking around. Some may have a little bit of loving. Some people may have a little bit of feeling lovable. They may be missing in their sense of loving. But we're all missing something in that component of self-love. And I think that's why we see so many bullies in the world and so many victims being bullied in the world, the lack of self-love. I kind of went on a ramble there. I apologize. I get excited about stuff. I like this self-love stuff now that I'm into it.
Absolutely. Well, let me ask you about love as far as a degree. Is there a degree where you can love yourself so much that you're selfish? You're like, you're paying too much of your self-love instead of worrying about me.
That's a perfect question. I love that question. Absolutely not. Those are two different energies. One is based on love, and selfishness is based on a sense of lack. I've got to get my share. I need the attention. I need the focus. That's a sense of lack. Self-love is a sense of love. And the interesting thing about self-love, which is selfishness, is a sense of lack. I guarantee you, I know enough about it. I saw enough of it in my life to know exactly what selfishness is. Self-love is based on love. And the interesting thing about self-love is when you have self-love and you practice compassion with yourself, you suddenly have more compassion for other people. When you practice self-acceptance for your flaws and your mistakes, you suddenly have much more self-acceptance for others' flaws and mistakes. When you practice kindness for yourself, you have more kindness to others. It literally is a circle, a good circle, not that negative circle, a good circle, that the more you have self-love for yourself, the more love you have for other people. And that was a surprise to me, frankly, because I started the self-love work for myself. so I could feel better,
Right.
be better, get those critical voices out of my head, those judgments out of my head, get my heart open. I really wanted to do that work. I did it for me. But the benefit was also and I was a loving person. I mean, I think most of us are loving people, but my love for other people grew, and my love for people that I used to be pissed off at grew as well. So, I mean,
Right.
self-love is not – selfishness has to do with a sense of lack, and you've got to grab your share and hold on to it for dear life. Self-love is
Right.
about love, and there's never enough love. We can always grow in our love, because the more love I have for myself, the more love I have for other people. Again, didn't know that when I started the journey. Know it now, though.
Mhm.
And
So it
actually,
sounds like
psychologists – go ahead.
no, it sounds. I want to hear about the psychologist, but it sounds like we're going back to the '60s and free love.
Well, in a way it is, although 60s was more about sexual free love.
Uh,
That was my childhood. That was the sexual free love, which was an important part of our journey, too, which was the freedom of women, frankly. Was the sexual love was the freedom of women, if you want to get real into this. That was the 60s. But it is about love. And it's what is love,
mhm.
and versus looking for love always on the outside, finding it within yourself suddenly means you can able to give it to other people. And then when you get it from somebody else, it's the cherry on top of the sundae. It's not the sundae. The sundae comes from within, because you know you're valued and you matter to the universe. You're loved, and how you express your loving heart is good enough, and that you are worthy of love. That the cherry on top is just the bonus when somebody loves you as well. It's just wonderful. So it is, in a sense, a freedom of love, but it's not just a sexual freedom of love. It's a freedom of love of the heart. And that we
Right.
are able to, because my heart is much more open. I don't have the boundaries I used to have around my heart to protect my heart so that nobody could hurt me.
Mm.
Or nobody would be, if somebody got jealous and angry at me, they would hurt me. So I had boundaries around my heart. My boundaries are pretty down. Doesn't mean I don't have boundaries. That's part of self-love, having boundaries. You have boundaries around certain people or certain situations. But I don't have to have stuff around my heart. My heart can be
Mhm.
wide open. It takes a lot of work, and it can be much more wide open. I'm not going to stop doing this work till my last breath. Again, there's never enough love, frankly. Because as you
Right.
expand your love, you begin to change your beliefs. Okay, I believe I deserve to have my dreams come true. Okay, I can live with that belief. I like that belief. So you do that for a little while, and you say, yeah, but you know what? I also believe the universe wants me to have my dreams. Oh, that's even a bigger dream. Okay, I believe the universe wants me to have my dreams. Okay, that's a bigger dream. So you keep expanding your beliefs around how big and juicy love can be. Because it can be
Mhm.
big and juicy as you can imagine it. So you keep expanding your beliefs, and it's done in layers again. If you believe that life, for instance, my childhood with the jealousy, I believe my energy made people angry, that something was wrong with me. I was made wrong because I made people angry at me because of the sibling who was very jealous, was always so angry at me. So
Mhm.
I decided that was my fault because I was little. That's what little kids do. They decide it's their fault. So I believed something was wrong with me. I wasn't, I knew I mattered to the universe, but I probably, something was wrong with him. Something wasn't quite right with me. I made people angry. So I had beliefs around that. I had beliefs that I could have so much success, but only so much, because if I had too much, then somebody's going to notice, they're going to get jealous, and they're going to hurt me. So
Mhm.
I would get off-Broadway work, or I'd get a commercial, or I would do some soap work, but I only go so far, and then I hit a wall. I said, okay, why is that wall? Now, I didn't know all this stuff when I was doing it. I had just started reading Seth Speaks. When I look back, I realized I hit that wall because I had a belief that if I got too successful, it's going to piss somebody off.
Mhm.
And I'd been raised with somebody who was constantly angry and viciously angry at me, that I didn't want somebody to be angry at me. So I could be only so successful. So when I went back to New York the second time, had done some of the inner work, I made much more money. I became much more successful. I still had some things to clean up. I still had that one more dark night when my mother passed, but I had a bigger belief system, more open. So that's the thing. You can never have too much love. It can be bigger. It can be juicier. It can be taller. It can be wider. It can be deeper. It can be everything you want. And that will not stop to your last breath if you so choose to do it.
Oh, that was beautiful. That's actually a nice icing on the cake. I had more, but like I mentioned, that 60 minutes flew by.
Oh, my God, you're right. Oh, my God. Oh, my Lord, it did fly by. Well, I hope, if anybody wants to read more about it, I've got a website, joffremcclung.com. They can find about my books. You can also just type in itsallaboutselflove.com. It'll take you to my website, itsallaboutselflove.com. I sure enjoyed this conversation with you, I have to say.
Absolutely. I did too. And are there any plans for workshops in the future?
Well, I've been doing some here in Texas, kind of getting my feet wet down here now that I'm down here. So I'm starting to build it, and I would like to get something going. So I'll keep you posted on that for sure. Because I do like teaching. I do like helping people deal with their stuff so they can let go of those inner wounds and grow in their self-love. It's juicy. It's fun.
Absolutely. Well, you have just been in tune to another episode of Intrinsic Motivation from a homie's perspective. Joffre, it was a pleasure. Let's definitely stay in touch.
I sure will. And thank you so much for having me. Have a great day.
Thank you. Cheers.
Bye-bye.